Today on Map Editor Magic, we're going to be building a waterfall, but more importantly, we're going to be building that waterfall into the start of a brand new map. This map is currently called the Jungle Hunt, which reflects the theme of the map that we're going to be going with, very much inspired by films like Predator and, of course, even the OG Far Cry. Lots of jungle, tropical elements in this. It's going to be a bounty hunt-focused map, where we're going to have a river running through the center of the map that not only sort of splits the map, but also kind of connects the outpost we're going to be building. It also acts as an integral part of that elevation change via the waterfall we're going to build. This is going to be a very rich and dense environment. We're going to have some great lines of sight for the player. We're going to use zip lines here and there. It is going to be focused heavily, not just on form this time around, looking very beautiful, looking very real and alive, but also on being very functional, being hopefully one of the best bounty hunt maps that I can build. I learned a lot from that first build. I want to take everything I've learned to build a really playable and enjoyable map that uses sort of a 360-degree available attack radius for the player to allow them to really explore the edges of the map before deciding how they take down their bounty hunt targets, which will be scattered throughout the outpost of the map in this case. That's actually going to exist on either side of the river we're going to build. So it's going to be fun river crossings. It's going to be really cool, but let's start today by focusing entirely on that waterfall build. Now, a lot of the time I make these builds in my free time, and I spend a lot of time refining them and tweaking them, and I show them to you guys like when they look really good. But we're going to build it from scratch today, so I can really show you the process of how I build a waterfall, and hopefully that will help you understand how to build waterfalls. And then you can just go build your own beautiful waterfalls however you see fit, wherever you see fit, with any logic you want, a lot easier. Now to start, we need our river. A river is done using the water elevation tool. We've set that to 70. Learning your elevations in this game, learning your proportions and your scales in regards to what the player is going to see, how the player is going to perceive the height and the size of things is very important. So I've gone with 70, and if you look at our base terrain here, it is at 71.50, right down in the bottom right corner here. That means we're 1.5 meters above the sea level, or the water level in this case. And when we jump in game, we get a really nice bit of depth. You know, when we smooth this out, this will look very natural, like a river that's not too big, but that has sort of come to a smaller form factor to make its way through this portion of the jungle. We won't have to make it too deep. We can make it deep in areas if we want to, and we'll be able to do a lot of nice crossings that aren't just all bridge focused. Maybe we've got a tree branch crossing. You know, we can do some fun stuff with this, a rock crossing even. We can even bake some other little waterfalls and rapids into here as time goes on. But it's going to be a really good base to work off of. It's going to have a lot of freedom, and I think it's going to create a really cool water crossing environment that could potentially be used by the player for stealth, or, you know, different point of attack, if you will. So where are we going to put our waterfall? Well, the camp's going to be right around here, and our waterfall is actually going to be part of that elevation change I talked about. So I've already decided 84.50 is going to mark this cliff face that we're going to build right here. Let's just take our brush, just get in there, lay it out. It doesn't have to look like anything. We can make it more natural later on, not to mention, again, the less time you spend trying to make it look the way you think it should look naturally, the more natural it looks. It's just one of those things, if you spend some time out in nature. So one of the things that I've really got to appreciate as a hunter over the years, and just as someone who spent a lot of time in the outdoors, whether it was playing paintball, you know, just doing archery competitions, 3D shoots and stuff like that, you know, out on my bike, is the randomness of nature. It always surprises you. It never looks as uniform or as perfect as you think it does. It almost always does things that you wouldn't otherwise have thought of. So don't worry about it right now. Let's just lay that out. I'm thinking we might just bring it out a little bit more, though, for the sake of our waterfall. So let's just bring this up a little bit more here. There we go. Let's bring that waterfall a little bit closer to that portion of the lake. We want the waterfall to be actually very close to the camp. We kind of want this camp to maybe even in some cases overlap onto the upper ridge. You know, we'll have to see how it works out. But let's get down and dirty in here now. We've got our elevation change. Let me actually just pop in here, though. I want to really stress the importance of building out scaling. You know, the important thing when you build out a waterfall is to consider its height in parallel to its width. You know, if this isn't going to be a really wide waterfall, then it doesn't necessarily need to be 1,000 feet tall, although there are sometimes really tall waterfalls that are very thin. So again, a lot of it's personal preference as well. But let's go ahead and actually make sure that this is flush here for the sake of building out the waterfall. It's nice to start with a nice flat surface and then go back later on and rough it up and do everything you need to do. In the case of the waterfall, it's very important actually that this is flush, and I'll show you why right now. We're going to go ahead and grab our lake, and we're going to build out the upper portion of our river here. Now, the unfortunate thing about the lake tool is it doesn't actually give you a lot of freedom. I wish it was more of a water tool that we could shape into squares or into circles to make what we wanted to make. There's a lot of limitations with this, the biggest one being that you can't actually set the roughness of it. You can change the length of it and the width and the water type, but you can't make it any more rough. You can't make it flow in any one direction. If I had one big request from the Ubisoft team, it would be, let me make the lake flow in one direction so I can make a genuine second portion to my river. But we got to work with what we got, so we're going to bring this right to the edge. We actually want to leave a bit of this edge here, and I'll show you why in a second. Then we can go ahead, and if we wanted to, we could bury this underground. I'm actually going to put it right on surface level here so I can work with it. We're going to go into our raise and lower tool. I'm going to set this to circular for now. We're going to widen it just a little bit. We want it to essentially match the current width of our river here. Maybe a little bit less so. That'll be perfect. And I've got it set to take away in 5-meter increments. And I'm not going to go right to the edge. I'm actually going to start way up here. And we're going to just go right under there. And we're not going to go all the way today. We're just going to kind of give you guys the idea of how to do this. Because, again, I can spend hours refining and tweaking this stuff. We're not going to get too obsessed with making it flawless just yet. We're going to work on the function of it right now in the basic form. So let's bring our river down into the surface there. Now with these lakes, you have a limitation to how far you can set them down. So you want to keep checking your map validation tool. I like to make them as deep as I can without triggering the validation. And basically what it'll say is object is entirely under lake right there. It's entirely under the terrain, in this case the lake. So bring it up just a little bit. Really push that boundary if you're patient like I am. I'll keep doing this increments at a time. There we go. Nice and deep, just the way we want it. Now we're going to go into our flatten tool. We're going to keep it square, and that's going to allow us to bring us right to the edge here, right to the very edge. We want to just get this as close as we can. Just get a nice little lip going there. Bring it out a little bit more, Can we get a nice sharp edge? Yeah, you got to love that flatten tool. Now the reason we're doing that is because it's a lake. And if you actually drag it to the edge, you get this awful effect, right, of like seeing the lake. We don't want to see the lake, right? We want to make the perception that the waterfall is going over the edge and that the lake is just a seamless part of that. So in order for us to do that, we got to start baking in some other things like some rocks. So let's go into our nature section, go down to rocks, and we're going to go ahead and use coastal rocks for this. These are going to give us, again, that sort of jungle, tropical vibe that I'm going for. Now, we don't really have any rocks, unfortunately, in this category that really seem like they're weathered from a waterfall. The best one I found when I've been practicing these is this coast cliff. So we're going to drop this coast cliff down, push it into there, and then bring it down. And we're going to put it so kind of acts as a part of the edge, but we don't want it to be all of it, right? So we're okay with having some rock there. We can have a rough waterfall going right over the edge of the rock, but we want to leave some of that surface. And then what we'll do is we'll break out our smoothing tool in a very small size. I'm going to do a square one for this. And we'll just start to chip away at this very carefully. Again, we don't want to bring down it too far and expose the edge like we've done there. So we might want to bump that back up just a little bit. Be careful, we're pushing up our river here. We got to be careful with that. So let's actually back ourselves off a little bit. And then we'll just smooth it a little bit smaller this time. It's important to mess with the speed tool and to get what you want. It's okay, too, to leave that a little bit ragged and rough. We're not worried because we're actually going to put a rock face texture over that. It can just look like a part of the rocks if you want it to, you know? So it's not a huge deal. We're trying to give the illusion here. That's the important thing to remember. We're building an illusion with this. It's never going to look 100%, but we can build the illusion that it is. So let's go ahead and build that illusion, shall we? Let's go into our objects. We're going to go into lights and effects, and then we're going to go under water. Now, the waterfall essentially exists in multiple components. Of course, we've got our small waterfall. So if you were building sort of a tiered waterfall that maybe bounces off of multiple rock surfaces because it's flowing really slowly, you can do that. We're going to go ahead, though, and take the basic waterfall right here. Drag that up in the air so we can get a look at it. And we're actually going to want to rotate it. It's pretty wide, but in this case, it's moving against the grid as we've set it. So we'll rotate it 90 degrees. We could have used the snap if we wanted to on that to get it perfect. And then we're going to line it up. Line it up just right in the middle of here. Now, one of the things I've decided to do was to build this entire concept around the width of these actual waterfalls. I didn't want the lake, the river in this case, as the lake tool we're using it, to be wider than the default for these waterfalls. I didn't want to have to stack two together. I mean, you can do it and it still looks fine. It was just a personal preference of mine. So there we go. Now that doesn't look like a lot of water. It doesn't really disguise or give the illusion as well as maybe we'd like it to, but that's okay because we have other tools that allow us to do that. And that is the other two pieces of the waterfall, splash bottom and splash top. So let's start with splash top. I'm actually going to turn on my snap angle right here so we can just rotate this 90 degrees real quick. Bring it up, and then you can see we got this nice, vigorous splashing that's going to simulate the water kind of just flowing over the edge here, losing control of itself and engaging in some beautiful free fall. Some beautiful water free fall. There we go. Get the splash going. We want to bring this a little bit closer to the edge. We could bring this rock down more if we wanted to. You know, just what do you think looks good? Everyone's going to have a different idea for how their waterfall should look. There's no perfect way here. It's more important to have fun with this. You know, somebody was asking, oh, you know, nobody will ever play my maps. No one's going to play this map. Dude, just do it for yourself, man. This is just fun. It's like painting on that canvas. It's so Bob Ross would probably do this himself. He would respect this. I guarantee it. He'd see this and he'd be like, this is amazing. People just making these beautiful environments in 3D, you know, and being able to do it without having, you know, thousands of hours of learning on an actual like 3D modeling platform. So now we can go ahead and add in our bottom piece. So we've got our splash bottom. Again, we want to go ahead and rotate that 90 right away. Just give it a good old snapperonio. I think I actually rotated it more than 90. There we go. Got to use those colors to understand where it's getting rotated from. Let's get down and dirty in there just so we can make sure that splash is right where we want it. Back out, and that's a very vigorous waterfall. We don't have to have the splash at the bottom if we don't want to. Maybe we want to decide it's a little bit calmer when it comes down. I kind of like it, although I might bury it a little bit lower because we are going to go ahead now and connect our lower river to our upper river. So let's grab our tool, just drag ourselves in there. Just start small. We don't want to get too close to that edge because we risk eating away at our lip there. That is, you know, keeping a lot of that illusion alive. So we'll get nice and close here. Just chuck away at it. We're going to have a little sort of a pool down here, right, where the water is coming off the waterfall and then it links itself back into the river. Nice and steady. And we can come back and tweak this for, you know, hours. This isn't going to look perfect. We're not going to obsess too much over the details today. It's all about just getting those basics down, right, and then coming back. Maybe we want this to be nice and deep in here too, and then we can kind of gradually bake it up. So I'm going to keep chunking away 5 meters at a time here, building it a little bit deeper out at a time. Just eat away at it. Eat away at it. And there we go. I'm happy with that for now. It doesn't look too shabby. We can figure out the remainder of the shape at some point if we just want to even start to lay it in a little bit so we have a general idea of where we want to go with it. Oops, that's the wrong tool, ladies and gentlemen. And then I'll probably use the flatten tool to actually finish that out at some point. But let's get back up here because you guys are probably wondering, well, Tony, how am I going to build a river all the way to the back of the map now? And we're going to simply do that by linking together lakes. Now we can just go ahead and duplicate this one. Copy paste it. You can control C on that actually if you wanted to. We're going to bring it right in here. And believe it or not, you can actually get these close enough that they become seamless. It takes some patience. Let's see if we can make it happen here early on. You're going to want to just get yourself nice and horizontal here. And then drag it down just to the point where it disappears beneath the other one. And that's going to require you to get eye level and really get finicky with it. First, we got to drop it below the terrain level. You can see it touching for the first time. Still a little bit of seam there. We might have some seam. No, you know what? Looks good. We might have a little bit of seam left in there, but it's probably nothing that's going to be noticeable. So let's go ahead and jump in. If you have trouble just getting the seam to disappear, like there you go, boom, that's gone. I can't see it. It might show up at some point, but it's not there right now, so I'm not worried about it. But if you really have trouble with it, or maybe you want to build up an additional elevation, you just start to use more rocks like we did. Make another small section like you did here, and then go ahead and, you know, kind of bake it out. Now, hopping into first person, as I recommend you do often enough, showcases that this obviously isn't placed where we need it to be. That needs to get down way lower, man. You come on down there. And same with you. What are you doing up there? And maybe we even bring it back this way a little bit so it really looks like it's splashing into the rocks. I think I might have actually rotated this in the wrong direction, guys. Hold on a second. I did. There we go. That looks a lot, that looks a lot better now. All right, you gotta pay attention to them directions. Let's bring that waterfall itself in a little bit, and let's take a look at what we built. It's low poly right now essentially, but I like looking at it when it's like this. I think there's actually kind of there's an interesting aesthetic to it, just being on a sort of, you know, untextured surface, and just looking at the waterfall and seeing all the rough edges, and then seeing how much more alive it looks once you start to bake all those extra details in. Look at that. Looks good, man. From up here, it looks really good. You know, we got our lake coming back through here. We'll run that all the way out the back, maybe make some additional elevation changes in there, add some rocks, and we can really bring this to life over time. But now you've got the basic tools you need to build your own waterfalls, to link your lakes together, and it's just a matter of experimenting. Unfortunately, again, there are just certain limitations due to the way that the editor works, but you can overcome a lot of those limitations with a bit of creativity and a bit of ingenuity, a bit of a mystery, if you will, right? It's all about creating illusions in this game, and that's one beautiful illusion, if you ask me. It looks like a pretty damn good waterfall, considering we're just linking together some weird surfaces, some lakes. And again, we can start to bring this to life now. You know, get some heavy foliage around here. This is a very rich area. We've got a lot of nutrients coming over the waterfall. Maybe add some more rocks to this. And then this entire cliff surface is going to get worked out and roughed out. And we're really going to bring this area to life. And I'm thinking then around the edges of the map, we'll have the forest be so dense that way when we set the player boundary, players can only go so far, and they'll never actually have to see the edge of the map. We don't have to build it up with mountains as much as we had to do with the forest location, because we're going to make it more centralized in the middle of the map here and make better use of the area we have to create a denser, more interesting environment and go a little less big this time. It's going to allow us to get more landmarks, more details, more beauty into the map, more of those snap-worthy shots without using as much memory up. Maybe we'll build a mountain out here, a little volcano in the distance so the player can see it over the treetops, you know, fake erupting volcano. I think that'd be pretty dope, actually. I'm going to get carried away with this one, just like I did with the last map, and hope you guys will join me for it and have some fun. If you have any questions about making waterfalls, anything that I maybe didn't clarify here, feel free to drop it down in the comment section below. I'll try and answer it, as I'm sure many other people in the map making community will. There's been a lot of awesome tips and tricks and just feedback being shared in that comment section. I really appreciate that, guys. That stuff is always awesome. One last thing before we go, though. We are going to be back next Tuesday with more tutorials on this map. I did want to just kind of talk about a few things you guys have asked me about. A lot of people, like, can you do, you know, some more general tutorials? I'm kind of going to steer away from those. It's not really the direction I want to go with this. I like building tutorials that come naturally as I build out the map. I just like that process. It's more enjoyable for me, and I think it allows me to make tutorials that are maybe more interesting, more nuanced, and more specific. There are actually a lot of really good creators out there doing specific tutorials, and I really do recommend you search for them and give them some love as well. You know, general tutorials, general tips and guides and stuff like that. People are already doing stuff like that and really killing it, so give them some love. Now, I know a lot of you guys weren't able to play the last map, and even though I'm not as proud of it as I once was, just because I've already learned so much starting to mess around with this map, I am going to try and do a playthrough for those of you who don't play on PC, and then upload it as an unlisted video. Now, if you go to my community tab, if you go to the bell next to subscribe, to make sure you turn on all posts, you'll get any of those community updates I do. Those give you information on future streams, which I'm starting streaming again next week. I've got a schedule that's already up there. They give you information on, you know, just questions I might be asking people, polls I might run for the channel, fun little conversation bits and pieces. You know, if you want to get involved with that sort of thing, that's the place to do it. And I will post the unlisted playthrough of that as soon as I get through it, so you guys can check out the map on a playthrough that I'll run and see what it's like, since you weren't able to over on the PC. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next Tuesday for more map editor magic. I hope your map making, if you get some map making goodness going this weekend, is wonderful. If you build any waterfalls, if you build any maps, take screenshots, share them with me. Hit me up on Twitter at TonyMoGaming. Share those screenshots with me. I love seeing what people are working on. A lot of you guys have talked about maps you finished. Take a screenshot. You know, take a screenshot on Xbox, on PlayStation, on PC, and share it with me. I want to see the projects you're working on. I want to see what you guys are getting creative with. And I will see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.